Okay, welcome. I'm Ben Frank, and I'm so excited to have a very special guest on today's show. She is a professional hockey player, a performance coach, and mentor, and
Yeah,
she's been called a trailblazer in the sport, the one and only Blake Bolden. Welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here.
yeah, it's really good to see you again. It's been a really long time, so
Yes.
it's fun.
Yes, I'm excited. I know you're busy traveling a lot and coaching, doing all kinds of things, but and you have a big following on social media and fans out there. But for those viewers that don't know you yet, Blake, tell us a little bit about your story, who you are, and what you do now.
That's a loaded question. I'm a professional women's hockey player now, but I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. I fell in love with the game when I was 6 years old, and I was watching the IHL, the International Hockey League, and the Cleveland Lumberjacks, and I just told my dad that I wanted to try it. And ever since then, I've been obsessed with playing hockey. I played boys up until I was 14, went to prep school in Lake Placid, played at Boston College, played on the national team, won some world championships, and have played in both the CWHL, the NWHL, and overseas in Switzerland. And
Hmm.
I live in San Diego, California, which is where we met. And
Hmm.
this is where I'm at now. And I started a business called Blake Bolden Athletics that I absolutely adore. I'm very passionate about helping and growing women into the athletes that they want to become. And
Yeah.
that's me in short.
Awesome. Yeah, and you're very humble. You know, there's some all-star games you've made in there. There's some hardest shot competitions you've won. There's professional league championships that you seem to win almost whatever team you end up on. So I know that you're a big inspiration to a lot of young female hockey players, but also athletes in general. You coach kids now, you mentor kids. Is that something that you've always enjoyed doing? I've noticed that one thing I'd love to dig into a little bit is, maybe you could start by telling us why you've been coined a trailblazer, actually, because I've heard some interviews with you. You've been on some interviews on television and things, and they've talked about you being a trailblazer. And some people, some professional athletes, don't embrace the opportunity to become a role model. You get the famous Charles Barkley said, "I'm not a role model," and some athletes don't want that responsibility. You seem to be someone that embraces that responsibility as an ambassador, as a trailblazer, someone making change. Is that something, where does that come from? And is that something natural or something you just felt you had to do?
I think it's something that organically happened in the time that I grew up in the sport. I'm the first Black player to play in the National Women's Hockey League.
Mhm.
And, there's Willie O'Ree, who was the first Black player to play in the National Hockey League, and he's
Mhm.
86 years old, and I'm
Yeah.
20. So the
Yeah.
discrepancy between those two ages is huge,
Mhm.
which sheds light on just the opportunities that women have. And I think I've just fallen into this role because I think it's important to spread my story. And when I was growing up, I didn't see people that looked like me or Black women or really Black people in the rink. So I just try to be that voice and try to be that role model for those of color or any sort of different background that is just like, oh, hockey, what is that? I'm like, yeah, you can play
Mhm.
hockey if you want to play hockey.
Yeah. Do you remember when the first time was when you all of a sudden, because you were trying to be, you're a hockey player, you're trying to make it, you're trying to make it to college and whatever, and then all of a sudden people are calling you a trailblazer or a role model or someone like you have the fans, young girls that want you to sign their stuff or whatever. Do you remember when like you realized like, whoa, like there's something bigger here, and were you resistant to it at first, or how did it feel?
I definitely was never resistant to any sort of appreciation. I think that when young girls look at someone, anybody, not just me, it's like, yeah, you should sit there and you should give an autograph and you should take a picture and you should inspire. So I
Mhm.
just think that that's something that everybody should do, is to shed light and to give a little love and make what you've done, easier for the generation behind you. So that's very important to me. But I had no idea that I was a trailblazer. I just kind of like woke up and someone was like, "Did you know you
Mhm.
were the first person to do this?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." And that question just kept rolling and rolling and rolling. And I just am like, "All right, well, I am a role model." And these individuals and parents will come up to me and be like, "Oh, my daughter looks up to you." And I was like, "Oh, okay, this is
Yeah.
awesome." So
Wow.
it wasn't something that I tried to do. Just the opportunity presented itself, and I just want to be a good person for myself and others.
That's awesome. And I know you've made a big impact on a lot of people already. That's the positive, right? So 20 years later, whatever, of all the grind and all these things, I
Yeah,
can't imagine though that it was always like that as a young Black female playing hockey in Ohio,
yeah.
however many years ago. If you don't mind sharing, what were some of the things that you ran up against negatively? So you played on boys teams. So whether it's sexism, racism, did you
Yeah.
experience that kind of stuff when you were younger?
Yeah, I did. Definitely sexism when I tried out for the boys team, and I kind of have always been this person that's easily someone that can adapt to things. So I don't even really I noticed that I was the only Black person there, but I can't see my skin color.
Mm.
So when I was a little kid, I just thought I was a little kid like everyone else, until there were racial slurs on the ice, little boys calling me the N word, be calling me, whatever they were calling me. I'm sure
Mm.
you can imagine. And then my parents having to deal with ignorant parents in the stands saying things like,
Mm-hmm.
if I were to be better than a boy, their son, it was just the end of the world. And there were just terrible things that were said. But my parents definitely tried to shelter me from that, or not so much shelter me, but just kind of say, hey, Blake, like you're better than that. You don't need to respond to that ignorance. And they led by example because I never saw them yelling or screaming or starting any sort of ruckus in the stands. So as long as their resolve was okay, I was okay as well. And eventually
Wow.
my teammates respected me and had my back. So I kind
Wow.
of just built respect around myself and my teammates, and I felt safe.
Yeah. Wow. I can imagine there might have been some challenging like moments, right? Where you're wondering if, because it wasn't always, it's one thing when now you're a professional and you've had a certain accomplishments and stuff, but when you're a young player, and that's happening or it's happening to your child, wondering if you even want to keep doing this or if this is worth it. Did you ever have moments like that?
No, I never had a moment. I think innately I'm just a competitive person, and I was shipped off because I started a little bit later and my skills needed work. So my parents just shipped me off to all these places. And like I said before, I can adapt. I'm like, okay, I'm in Toronto, I'm in Chicago, I'm in Detroit. I'm in this camp
Mm.
for a week long boarding camp, and I
Mm.
just dove right in. And some days I'd have bad days, but I was just a kid that really wanted to have fun, and people are always asking me how I did it. But when I look back, I didn't have any sort of doubts that I wanted to be a college hockey player or go to the Olympics or just continue to play. I just wanted to play hockey and I wanted to be better than everyone else.
Yeah. Awesome. And why hockey? So your dad, let me tell a bit about a story. Your dad worked at the
Yeah.
games, and was he a hockey fan initially, or how did that all happen?
Like what is his favorite team? The New York Rangers
Mm-hmm.
are his team.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just obsessed with them and would always watch them on TV and tell me to sit down and watch the games because I'd learned something. And I'm like, I don't want to watch that. But when I was younger, he worked for the Cleveland Lumberjacks as a security guard, and it was really fun when I could watch the games.
Mm.
And he would have the little key card that could get me down into the locker
Oh,
room,
cool.
and a couple of them would come to my birthday parties, and
Oh,
Buzz,
cool.
the mascot, would always like give me a high five, and I could sit in boxes, and I just felt like I was in this organization as a little kid, and it
Yeah.
was really fun. And I had never played hockey. I had never knew what the sport was before my mom started dating him, and I was in gymnastics and track and random
Okay.
karate and random sports that didn't really stick until that.
Yeah. But you had done a bunch of sports already. You knew you liked sports. You just hadn't found your
Right.
one yet. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. And then, so how did the path to college hockey happen for you? When did you decide that's what you wanted to do? And then how did you get seen or do that process to get there?
Well, I was playing boys hockey, as we spoke before. I was playing for the Cleveland Lumberjacks, which was a AAA travel tier one, the best team in Ohio, sort of thing.
Mm.
And I remember speaking to my parents. I guess someone that was related to a prep school in Lake Placid, where I went, Northwood School, called the coach and said, "Hey, you need to check this girl out. He's a really good player. She would really help your team." I had no idea what prep school was because I thought that it was a place where rich kids went and
Mm,
their parents didn't want them to go,
mm,
or, just wanted them to get out of the house.
mm,
So I went there, and that's how I got my exposure to colleges.
mm,
And when I was a freshman at Northwood School in ninth grade, I saw BC play Minnesota Duluth in like a three-time overtime game
mm.
in the Frozen Four, and I just thought that it was so cool. The battle and the stage and the Frozen Four was just like the coolest thing to me at the time. And BC lost, and for whatever reason in my mind, I just decided I wanted to go to BC, not the winning team, but BC, because something told me that I wanted to help build a program and create a legacy instead of be a part of something that's already got all the stamps and all the
Yeah.
walls and the rinks and things like that.
Wow, that's really interesting. Like, has that always been your personality that you, rather than kind of front run, you want to be a part of elevating something?
I think so. I don't think I knew it then, but
Mm-hmm.
now as I'm getting older, I'm like, oh, I always want to do things my own way, and I always
Mm-hmm.
want to do something different. And when I saw Boston College, I went to Boston Beantown when I was a kid, and I fell in love with the city, and I loved everything about the school. And then I met the coaches at national camp,
Mm-hmm.
in Rochester or something like that when I was 15, and I thought they were so cool. Katie King is like the coolest person in the world, and I was engulfed in that. So I had a one-track mind, and that was that.
Yeah. And so when you went to prep school, was that your first time playing girls hockey, all girls hockey?
Yeah,
And so before that, when you were playing, were you was there any other girls in the league when you were playing the tier one AAA?
myself and Megan Bozek were the only girls in the league for
Wow.
like 4 years that we were playing. So we're
Wow.
close now, but back then we were kind of like arch enemies.
Hmm. Wow. And then what was the transition like going to play with all girls?
Oh, it was terrible. I
Oh,
got so
really?
many penalties. I didn't know how to control my body. But I realized that I was a lot faster and stronger and quicker in making decisions. So that's when I was like, oh, I actually am really good at this sport, because when I was playing with the boys,
Mhm.
I was even and average. But then when I, you know, switched
Yeah.
over, I was standing out, and it was
Wow.
fun.
Wow. Wow. And then when you decided to go to college, were you getting a lot of offers and things? You just picked your kind of dream school? Is that how it
Yeah,
worked?
I had, you go to school and you have the letters of intent, and everybody's throwing these things in your mailbox. And my parents, I think my first letter was from Princeton, and my mom was like, "Oh my God, she's going to Princeton." And I'm like, "I'm not going to Princeton, most likely. I want to go to Boston College." And yeah, I pretty much had a full ride everywhere besides Ivy's, because they don't give those out. And it
Mhm.
just didn't really matter because I wanted to go to BC.
Yeah. What did was your dad over the moon with you becoming a serious hockey player?
Yeah, he's still to this day. I think anyone he talks to, he brags about me, which is cute
Yeah.
and
Awesome.
overbearing.
Awesome. So a lot of success on the ice. Obviously, challenges being the only girl, being the only black player a lot of times, and dealing with that growing up. But then there's a lot of challenges as you continue to progress at the highest levels, right? Tell us maybe about your experience that going to national camp. You were a captain in college, right? You were one of the top players in the league. I think you were an all-star in college as well. So probably big expectations, big dreams about playing in the Olympics and things like that. Maybe
Yeah,
just tell us about. I know you were at various camps. Tell us about that experience.
yeah. When I was in high school, I played in the first two, or the first U under 18 national team worlds event, and that was in Calgary, and that was a really big deal. And we won, and then the next year we won again, and so I was kind of in this national team lookout pool. And
Mm-hmm.
then I went to college. It was a U22 situation, and it was very stressful because you had college work and you had to keep up with your schoolwork, but then you had your Boston College stuff, and then you'd have Team USA stuff, and you would be leaving 4 or 5 times a year to go to testing, and be basically judged on your skill.
Yeah.
And it was very difficult for me mentally, and emotionally. And I gave it my best, and most people will say that I should have been on the team, and I think that it would have been great, but my dream didn't come true. And I
Mm.
think that's shaped a lot of the way I think and view the world now, is to, just because you don't achieve something doesn't mean your value is any lesser, and you can always make something out of what you have and who you are. And that's why the mentorship program for me was a really big deal, because like I said, mentally it took me years to get over being cut from the national team, being cut from the Olympics, being told that you're not good enough when you believe in your heart that you are.
Yeah, wow, that's powerful. I think for young athletes especially, and it's interesting to hear you say how long it took you to wrap your mind around that, because I think one of the things that sports teaches is there's situations where maybe you don't get what you even deserve, or what you've worked for, or what you feel that you've earned, or other people feel that you've earned as well, and maybe because of someone else's decision. It could be because of injury. It could be because of circumstance. It could be because of these other things. And so do you feel though that like some of these things, that the positives and negatives that happen to you are an important part of how you're able to help young people now? Because if you only had successes, I guess your whole life, it'd be hard to understand where they're coming from, right?
100%. Yeah, I mean, I think failure's more so of a learning situation than constant success. I mean, when I told you about my climb to success, it was like, oh, I was the best at this, I was the best at this. And then it was like, boom, no, you're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boom, you're being told you're not. So what are you going to do? And how are you going to pick yourself up after that? So yeah, 100%. I've always been like, you know what? I'm uncomfortable. I have to figure out a way to be successful for myself,
Mm,
not for anybody else, but do what you want to do because you think you're good enough.
that's awesome. And that took you years to
Oh my
get
gosh,
to
yeah.
that point.
I think
Yeah.
still to that point. I mean, still, even this past Olympics, it's just like, man, what if, there's
Hmm.
always a what if, but then you just have to pick yourself up and just say, this is what I'm doing now. And you're very happy. And I
Right.
am.
Right. Right. Be happy now. Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about your journey then as a professional women's hockey player. I think that there's a lot of people that don't really don't know all the different dynamics and also opportunities to be a professional women's hockey player. You've played in the Canadian League. You've played in the American League. You've gone overseas and played. Maybe just tell us a little overview of your journey as a professional.
Yeah. Um, I guess now it's my seventh season after post college playing professional, and I don't think I ever thought that I would ever be at this point.
Mm,
Um, but when I graduated college in 2013 and I was told by USA Hockey that they weren't bringing me back, I had like a complete breakdown, and I just wanted to go home and not play sports, not play hockey anymore, or at least just take a break.
yeah.
I went home when I graduated. I just kind of like sulked in my misery and
Mm,
decided, okay, what the heck are you going to do now that you have this Boston College degree? And I was getting harassed, not harassed, but just constantly called by one of my previous coaches, Digit Murphy, to join in the CWHL draft. And I was like, I don't want to play hockey. I don't want to do this.
mm,
But I knew I kind of didn't want to live in Cleveland, Ohio for the rest of my life. So I just picked up my stuff, made an impulsive decision to move back to Boston with a couple of my teammates that I graduated with. And we started playing for the Boston Blades. And that was in 2013, September.
mm,
That was my first professional, but not professional because we weren't paid. We
mm.
just had stipends, and all of our expenses were covered. So those first 2 years in the CW show were definitely eye-opening because I had a full-time job in
Okay.
Boston, and I was a student services manager at a nonprofit called Inner City Weightlifting, and I worked a 9 to 5, and then I would have practice at 10 o'clock at night, and then I would
Wow.
have to get on a bus during the weekend and drive 10 hours to Toronto and back, and then get up in the morning and go to work. So that was a lot on my mind, on my body, on everything.
Hmm.
And so when that NWHL happened, and they were just like, we're going to keep it local. There's going to be only US teams. I wouldn't have to travel as far. Um, I would get paid a substantial amount, which was supplementary income to my full-time job. So I was feeling very comfortable,
Mm.
but it was still difficult, like just trying to train and be ready for a game. It was fascinating seeing all the people that were excited about the professional women's leagues that were starting, or the National Women's Hockey League that had happened. And it was great. My first year, we won the first ever Isabel Cup. I didn't tell you that my second year of the CWHL, we won. So I had
Hmm.
one back to back, and that was fabulous. And then the year after, a little bit of financial crisis happened with the league, where I had my salary cut in half, and I
Wow.
had quit my full-time job at Inner City Weightlifting. So that was like super rock bottom for me.
Hmm.
Living in Boston, a super expensive city, it was insane. So I kind of decided, hey, I'm gonna go to Switzerland and kind of have like a sabbatical and get
Mm.
paid to play hockey in a beautiful location. And there are so many different resources. I got in contact with a woman named Jacqueline Hawkins, and she has a women's hockey profile online that you can make a profile and link up with all of these coaches in Europe. Or even if you're in high school, you can have your profile of your stats, and coaches can see, who you are.
Mm.
So you just have to do the research. And I kind of just picked a place that was super beautiful, and I said, I really want to go there. And then it happened, uh,
Wow.
by, law of attraction, and just hoping that it would happen. And I was really fortunate to go where I wanted to go, and it was a beautiful year. I got to travel around Europe. I got to experience things that I wouldn't have otherwise experienced if I just decided to stay complacent
Mm.
and live in Boston, where I wasn't happy anymore.
Wow. And you hear the stories of even the NFL and the NHL when they were just starting, how the players that have daytime jobs, and then they'd go play at night because they just loved it. And now you see them having $100 million contracts and things like that.
$100
Do
million.
you do you see a future for the women's game that's similar path to the
I hope
men's?
so. I mean, it's hard because I think that, there's football, there's basketball, there's baseball, and then there's hockey. And
Mhm.
then on top of that, we're women. So it's like the last of the sports that people are somewhat interested in. But I think when you go to a game and you actually watch the talent and the speed, and you are enamored and in awe of the skill that you see in this, and it's fast.
Mhm.
So I think the visibility and people being able to see how good we are, and just having the opportunity to present our skills on a platform that everyone can see would be helpful, which is why we created this Players Association, as Canadian women's hockey players and US women's hockey players and girls all over the world, the best ones in the world, are doing this together.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, so it's a major stand. I mean, you can't help but put yourself in this trailblazer
yeah,
role, this leadership role.
sure.
First there was the race,
Yeah.
issue that you were kind of on the front lines of, and now the big stand for women's sports in general. It's interesting the timing of it too, with what happened with U.S. women's national team, with USA Hockey, with asking for fair pay for that team. What we've seen with what do you think about when you see the U.S. women's soccer team and some of the things in the WNBA? Do you guys talk about that as a group when you're talking about women's hockey?
Yeah, I mean, they have given us a blueprint. So as women, we're sticking together and we're supporting each other. And it's motivating to see people fight for what they want and get it.
Hmm.
And that's what we're hoping. We're hoping for someone who believes in our product, which we obviously think is worth it because we've spent our entire lives doing it, playing it, and being it. So, yeah, we're just going off of hope and communication with powerful individuals and organizations to help make a league for girls to think that they can play in, because when you play on these teams, when you're a boy, you can hope and dream to play in the NHL. But when you're a girl, what do you have besides the Olympics? And that's a 17 roster
Mhm.
count.
Yeah.
Many people are registered in USA Hockey in the United States. Thousands, hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
There's got to be somewhere for us to go and play if we're good at it.
Yeah. So maybe tell us just a little bit more about that. So there's a group of the top players and the most experienced players, I guess, right, that have decided. Are you guys deciding not to play, or you've created an association this year for within the professional leagues? How is that working?
Yeah, we have decided not to play in the National Women's Hockey League, and we have decided to create a players association. Um, and we are doing a Dream Gap tour, and we are playing around the country during specific times and specific places, and selling tickets and inspiring the youth around us to come watch us play,
Mm.
in hopes of showing those individuals of power, that hockey is important and people want to watch it,
Mm-hmm.
and we're valuable members.
Yeah.
We're
Well,
valuable athletes.
and has that started already?
Yeah,
Yeah.
our first weekend, which I wasn't a part of, because there are different regions that you're a part of. There's Calgary region, a New York region, Boston, Montreal, Toronto.
Mhm.
I'm in Buffalo because I had so much fun in Buffalo last year, and I live in San Diego, California. So that was obvious for me to go back to where I feel great and see all my other teammates. But we have made different showcases, what we're calling them. Last one was in Toronto, and it was a sold out showcase with
Wow.
Mary-Philippe Poulin and Brianne Jenner and Hillary Knight and Kendall Coyne and all these big major faces that are coming together. Doesn't matter what country you're from, but playing in this league to come to one goal, and that is to form something that we can, be sustained and
Yeah.
live and train and do what we do and do what we love and
Wow.
be compensated for.
Wow, that's awesome. And so all these women they were being paid in the NWHL, so they're all giving up their salaries basically
Yeah.
to take a stand and do something of change and risk
Yeah.
everything, really, for no
Salaries
guarantee.
weren't that much of a salary, but yes, we're
Yeah.
giving up the money that we were given in the National Women's Hockey League to just go for it.
Was there any fear of if this doesn't work, that other league won't take us back or things like that? Or do you think the people that got involved were just such all the top players and the most powerful players that it's made things easier? Or what do you think?
I think that the people that are in the Players Association are the best players in the world,
Hmm.
and it would be hard. I mean, we're just looking forward. We're looking for the future of women's
Yeah.
hockey. I can't really say if they would take us back or not, but um, me personally, I told you I'm 7 years in, so I could retire at any moment and be happy with the successes that I've had. And my only thing is for the people that are just coming out of college, I really want this to work for their future and the girls coming from behind them. And I feel like I might not even see the benefit of what we're doing now because of
Mm.
my time.
And have you kind of come to terms with that? Is what do you want your legacy to be as a female hockey player?
Um, I don't know if I've come to terms with it. I think everyone kind of has a point where they're kind of like, oh my gosh, I don't play what I've been playing for my most of my life. But I think when that time comes, I'll be ready.
Hmm.
And I think that I'm still skillful, probably the best that I've ever been in my life. So to me, it doesn't really make sense to stop until I feel that it's probably a good idea.
Hmm.
Um, but my legacy, I feel as though I just want to keep being the person that I'm being, and spreading positivity and motivating young girls, especially of color, to play all sports, but definitely ice hockey. And if, mentally I can do anything to give them confidence to do their thing, then that's what I'm all about.
What would it mean to you if 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, whatever that ends up being, you see that, the NWHL or Women's National Hockey League or whatever that ends up being called is, really a National Hockey League type professional full-time career
Yeah.
league? What would that mean to you, even if you're not playing anymore?
I think that's the goal. So I think that that's going to happen, and I would be very proud of myself and all the individuals that are making this possible, and
Awesome.
thankful for the people that are believing in us.
Yeah, incredible. I agree. I think you guys are going to make it happen. I see the work you're doing. Final couple of questions. So everything we've talked about, even what you're doing now off the ice, so you're already planning your transition from being a professional hockey player to your career in the future and working with young girls, mentoring. Where do you think your life would be? What do you think your life would be like if you never played hockey, if you never played sports?
Oh gosh, that's crazy. I don't know, honestly. I think there is no there's nothing. I don't know. That's a hard question.
Hmm.
I would always be playing something.
Yeah.
I don't think I could not. I think that I have like a very gifted, genetically gifted body to not play sports. And I don't know what I'd be doing, but I know I wouldn't be as happy as I am right now. I know that I wouldn't be making as big as an impact as I do right now. I just got a text message from a woman that I mentored that actually is a coach of, and I mentor all ages, but she texted me yesterday and she was training some younger girl, and she said I was her favorite hockey player. And when you think about some little girl saying that about you, when you
Mm.
actually think about it, you're like, holy crap, that's incredible. It
Yeah.
just makes you think your whole perspective changes because there was no one like me that I could think of
Mm.
that to say that girl is my favorite hockey player.
Your role models were male hockey players, right? The professionals that you saw.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
were male. They were, Brendan Shanahan and
Hmm.
Brett Hall, and like
Mm-hmm.
they were male.
Mm-hmm.
And so for a little girl to be able to say that I'm her favorite hockey player is huge.
That's awesome. And so a lot of the impact that you've had on people, whether it's young women or older women, coaches, players, a lot of it is through the vehicle of sport, right? So because of your accomplishments as an athlete or your leadership and what you've done transcending sport, but as an athlete, what do you think it is about sports in particular that becomes such a powerful way to impact people? What is it about sports that allows for that to happen?
Um, I think sports, you can start at a young age and learn quickly about the ways of life, failure, success,
Mm.
um, getting up when you're down. I think it's easier when you're an athlete and have played sports to communicate with individuals, express yourself, um, build mental toughness. So I think with sports, you can see changes. You can see how hard you've worked and how it affects something.
Mm.
So instead of it just being some imaginary thing that you're dreaming, it's tangible, or it's there. So if
Yeah.
I put in X amount of hours, I'm going to be good at this thing. And that is just a lesson that you can carry on with you for the rest of your life. And you can learn that at a very young age. So I think the camaraderie of sports, the community that you get, the relationships that you build, it's just something that can't be taken away from you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So I hope that's a good enough answer.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. That was awesome. Well, I know you got to run. You got off on a trip. I think New Hampshire, I think you said, right?
Yes, off
Um,
to New Hampshire.
yeah. So tell our audience just maybe about what's coming up next for you, and then how they can follow you, be in touch with you, or work with you for the future.
Yeah. What's coming up next for me is New Hampshire this weekend in Hudson. If you want to get your tickets, you can head over to my Instagram page to follow the Players Association website. My Instagram page is Sport Blake, so sport and my name Blake. It's Twitter, it's Instagram, it's everything. I have my mentorship program, which is Blake Bolden Athletics, where I work on nutrition, mental skills, time management, um, all of the things that you can think about, whether you're transitioning into high school or college and you need a little bit of help. Even if you're a male or a female, mostly male or mostly females I work with, but if you think that you can use a role model and someone to motivate you to get what you need done in life, just hit me up and I would love to work with you because it makes me so happy and fulfills my purpose to see individuals accomplish their short and long term goals.
Awesome. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much again for your time today. We'll be
Yeah.
following you. I know I'm following your Instagram page, so I'll be watching how you guys do on your tour. And
Yeah,
thanks so much for being on.
appreciate it. I'm on Team Lamoureux if you want to look out for me.
All right, will do. Thanks a
Thanks,
lot.
Ben. So
All right,
good
bye bye.
talking to you.